Hello, my Chuckle Crime nerds. So we are here live. I'm going to be going over, as I said, the chapter 1 of Visions of Glory and my opinions therein. I have a lot to say, obviously. Lots of notes and snark and all that fun stuff, but also through a Latter-day Saint lens. So if you're new here, as a reminder, we respect all faiths and those of no faith, no mocking mine or anyone else's, and I am a Latter-day Saint. Also, USA Today bestselling author of the suspense novel Just One More, and a whole bunch of other stuff. You can go look that up. I'll go through the first chapter, and then I'll pause to see if I have any questions or comments to respond to. We'll see how long it goes. All right. Whoopsie. Did not mean to do that. Let's try this again. Chapter 1. Okay, so I'm not going to be reading the whole thing, obviously, just bits and pieces. It's called Awakened by Death. He kind of goes through his childhood and his first near-death experience, as we're going to put that in quotes because I don't think a whole lot of that actually happened. Let's see here. Okay. So he talks about how he was born dead, because of course he was. Turns out he was stillborn, supposedly, and all this stuff. So now he's recounting his mother, saying that she never told me this herself, but I learned later that she had been relieved that I didn't make it because she had not wanted this pregnancy. So I think that's probably a seed to his own issues as an adult, that he needs to feel special. He needs to feel like he matters, and oh, does he end up thinking he matters? Holy crap. So then he talks about how his parents married, much to the dismay of his mother's family. I guess both of their parents. It was a rocky and abusive relationship, and he never met his father. But he had lots of disparaging comments about him. But here's the redeeming thing. His dad was Mormon / back then they didn't refer to us always as Latter-day Saints, but he was Mormon. And so after he died, and his mother apparently converted and her family said he basically disowned her, then her in-laws welcomed her and her baby son in. So there's a lot of trauma there to unpack, methinks. So his grandmother became the dearest person in my life. I'm thinking probably the only real mother figure he ever had. So good on her. But he has issues. And then he goes off. All right. Can you hear me now? Because it's saying my mic went in and out. Hopefully. Okay. Okay. So September of 1983 is his first near-death experience. And then as a side note, he says that he was so sick, but he had decided after this experience to quit drinking soda, and he never had kidney problems again. So you heard it here. You just stop drinking soda and your kidney problems will go away. Like that's so ridiculous. But there's a couple grammatical things. I won't point those out because as snarky as I can get. I like making fun of people's grammar when they think they're smart. In reality, I don't notice or don't care. But if you're responsible for bad things, I will mock you. So here he is talking about he's seeing people in this hospital, and suddenly so apparently he was going in for like a CT scan or something like that where they had to inject the contrast and he had a bad reaction to it, and that's what caused him to quote unquote die and then come back. So he says, I knew if they were good people or bad, or if they were honest or corrupt. And then like 3 lines later he says, I felt no judgment of them. Dude, you just judged them. Good or bad, honest or corrupt. Like I have no problem like saying a murderer is corrupt, but don't say you're not judging on some level. That's ridiculous. Okay. And then he's talking about my life rehearsal, and he keeps using that word throughout this book as if it means they're watching it, but that's not what rehearsal means. So it's just kind of bizarre. Um, so suddenly he's seeing things from like his mother carrying him in his womb, and every thought she had, I'm thinking that is intrusive. Um, that's disturbing to me. That seems to go against free will and all that stuff. And then he even says, I watched my own conception. You what now? That's not something I would want to behold. Unless, I mean, is he talking literally like he was inside her womb and viewing like the egg and the sperm? But I'm sorry, what? No. And then here he basically almost throws his mother under the bus and any woman who ever has a stillborn or a sickly child, because he says, and this is trying to sound like having sympathy, but it just it doesn't come across that way to me, in my opinion. That he feels her fear and anger and all of this stuff. The dark emotion of those days had sapped her life, referring to the pregnancy, had sapped her life and robbed my unborn body of the vitality it needed to survive. So his mother having a difficult time and struggling is what killed her baby. I'm not cool with that. Just saying. Victim blaming, among other things. Okay. And then he says that the people he sees around that were like heavenly beings were either translated persons or resurrected because they had bodies. First of all, how did he know they had bodies? Because we believe the spirits even have tangible matter of some kind. But why would he think that they're translated? That's bizarre. Anyway, this is where Chad and Lori got a lot of their information from and a lot of their weird ideas, as did Julie Rowe and a bunch of others that jump off these crazy cliffs. So that's why we're doing this. So apparently after he watches his own birth, little stillborn body was black and dark blue. And when there's no heartbeat, then the nurse wraps him in newspaper. I don't know, like, what is this, Victorian England? I don't know of any modern day hospital. And I'm assuming, like, if we're talking, he was in his 30s when this happened. So this is in the 50s when he's born. What hospital would wrap stillborn babies in newspaper? That's so bizarre to me. Okay, that's sanitary. Yeah. Then he watches these nurses or the heavenly spiritual beings. Their hands were actually entering my little body. And then so I'm like, oh, so they're translated beings then, or they're not translated beings because how are they going into your body if they have bodies of their own? And then later he also talks about how it's a violation to enter someone else's body without their permission. So how do you justify that? Where if as a little baby he couldn't give permission, and these spirits are doing it anyway. So he makes sense. Not okay. And then weird things that don't make a whole lot of sense. None of this does, frankly, but some makes less sense than others. But then he talks about like God's perspective on things, and he contradicts himself yet again. He refers to God's perspective as the great objective lens. And then he says that's what he was able to experience, was this great objective lens. Each person experienced you uniquely and differently. And I'm like, well, that's not objective. That's literally subjective. So what? Okay. And then he talks about how during this first experience, he was so young. But so fortunately he was young and had lived a good life. And so his life wasn't too unpleasant to watch. His rehearsal, again, as he calls it. And I'm like, you were 33. That's not, I mean, granted, in adulthood is not, but if you say I was young, I'm picturing 13, not 33. Okay. And then again, he's talking about the judgment and how all wonderful that is. All of the judgment was correct and righteous, which, okay, if it's coming from God, I believe that. It was sound, fair, and gracious. But then I'm still amazed at how objective my life review was. So he's calling it a review, which is much better than a rehearsal because hi. But just and objective are not really the same thing. Objective does not have a judgment attached to it at all, and we know with mercy and everything else, there would be judgment of some, or yeah, subjectiveness of some kind. Um, and then he says, it hit me, it's literally taken me decades since to reconcile what I was taught as a child with what I had seen really happen, referring to all of the stuff of his parents and their resentment and their relationship. And I was like, you weren't there. You even are saying you're watching like he's watching this thing in vision, but you literally weren't, he wasn't transported in time. He's just like watching a video replay, even by his own account. So what? No. I succeeded in speaking the kindly words. So yeah, sorry, backing up. So he, throughout this, he starts having tender, loving feelings toward his father. And then he says, I never succeeded in speaking the kindly words I had stored up in my mind regarding him and her, his mother's presence. And I was like, good. That would be incredibly painful if he found forgiveness and love for this man he never met, who abandoned his mother and treated her horribly, abused her. Party on. But I'm so glad he'd never had the guts to tell that to his mother. That would be so incredibly hurtful and painful. Goodness gracious, dude. And then he talks about one of the wonderful insights I gained from this first near-death experience was regarding my older sister, who, so you can guess what he thought of her, she became pregnant at age 16. I had never understood the powerful effect this had upon her or the rest of my family. While I was living in those times, I had my perspective only. And I'm thinking, dude, like, even 5-year-old children eventually learn theory of mind. Like, they grasp that somebody else experiences life and can go, if that happened to me, I would probably be upset. That would probably affect me. He didn't notice even that his sister was probably struggling. He didn't notice that her pregnancy affected the whole family in some way. That sounds like a narcissist to me. Like, that's it, like, you can't put himself in somebody else's shoes. Goodness gracious. Talks about that he saw his own judgment of her, even though I was just trying to keep the peace. And this is where I come right back to so many people who call themselves Christian, Latter-day Saints, whatever. And Lori says this too. Oh, I never fight. I don't like to cause trouble. I'm a peacekeeper. I'm a peacemaker. And I'm like, no, you're not. You're allowing contention to fester. You're just sitting around and being passive and not actually helping anything, or you're doing silent judgment and passive aggressive nonsense. And that's manipulative, and that's not keeping peace or creating peace. You dork. So, okay. And then he goes, I asked my mother and sister years later to verify what I had seen. My mother and sister both acknowledged that there had actually been a shotgun wedding. I'm sitting there going, how did you not figure this out? Like, if you knew, there's basic facts, and then it's like A plus B equals C, you idiot. Like, did you not think through this? Like, duh. Referring to a sister, I believe. Her shotgun wedding. Okay. Oh, this was love. So, oh goodness gracious. So this bully was all causing him problems at school. He's in 5th grade. I finally got up the courage to fight back. And then in my live rehearsal I watched that day, I also saw my newfound courage from his perspective, which included the horrible abuse he was receiving from his father. When I stood up to Jake and hit him back, it totally changed his thinking about his world. Oh God, good job, Tom. No. I saw he felt powerless and victimized himself. My little act of courage showed him that he was not. He was not what? Powerless and victimized? Yeah, he was. Anyway, he never bullied me again or anyone else again. He was changed by that experience. And then a few lines later, he was emboldened to stand up to his father because of my action. And now we're like promoting violence in children. Good job, Tom. Good job. Yeah, let's turn the other cheek. I changed his life by punching him in the face. That's not how this works. Okay. Oh, and then he quit being afraid of bullies in general. And so not only did my actions begin the healing of his abuse, but his part in my life began my healing as well. Like, humble brag from page 1 on. It's disgusting. Ay, and then that realization still influences me today. Our relationship was ordained and engineered by God. This is his bully we're talking about, that he punched back. Just engineered by God to save us both. And my thinking today, it was well worth the few bruises it cost me. Yay, violence! No, goodness gracious. And then he says, he describes that he was in the play Oklahoma. I believe he was in high school at the time, and Jake, before Jake moved away, and the last thing that they did together, they were both in Oklahoma, and he played Judd, and Tom played Curly, and the fact that Judd falls on his knife and dies, and Curly, anyway, all of this stuff, he threatens Curly with a knife, and of course Curly gets the girl. The play was a metaphor of our relationship. Again, oh my holy crap, dude. Ego much? Again, he keeps referring it to as his life rehearsal, which is just weird. Okay, there's actually, I had a note here. Oh, this is something I can maybe possibly agree with. Okay, and then here is this little paragraph here is kind of the cliff that Chad and Lori jumped off, in my opinion. Finding out we had covenanted in premortality to do on earth, what we could covenanted in premortality to do on earth, is a continually unfolding discovery. Sometimes we can only know a tiny next step, and sometimes we're blessed with a sweeping vision of what we will become and do. I was being taught that I had to deliberately choose to be upon the path that God was laying before me, no matter how it came to my understanding, doing everything right that I know to do. That sounds not bad, right? And then like doing the next right thing. I mean, that's even like in the Frozen 2 has a song about that. But if you take this concept of, well, we are preordained to do this wonderful work, and then you take 1 or 2 steps into the dark, it's very easy to just jump off that cliff entirely. And I think that's kind of, this book planted a lot of those seeds for them. And then this would have been a principle to rein them in if they had thought through it, but they don't. So I learned that there truly is a return and report system in our present life, which we don't use properly. I recommend that we get used to doing this in our daily and family prayers and in our relationships, that we practice returning and reporting. This is what you asked me to do today. This is what I did. This is what happened. And then plead for eternal intervention in the details. So basically open communication with your family, with your friends, with God. That sounds like a decent principle. And if only Chad and Lori had actually been like, okay, God, I think you asked me to do this. This is what I did. Was that right? And if they had actually, I don't know, asked that question, maybe their consciences would have said no. Then again, maybe they were just too far gone. Probably. Then he talks about like invading someone else's body. You always seek permission if it is ever necessary. So then I was like, then when is it necessary? Like resuscitating his own little baby body, in which then they would have had to ask his spirit, which still would have existed. And we haven't seen any evidence that they did. But essentially that we break a spiritual law, then we're vulnerable by disobedience to God's laws, and they enter into us in an act of spiritual violence. So like being possessed. So again, this is a seedling of their zombie beliefs, I think. Let's see. And now he's talking about with his wife. This is just messed up. Like he got permission from his wife's spirit, but her physical body was unaware that he was going inside her. Ick. Her physical self had no realization that I was interacting with her. Her spiritual self, however, was fully aware of me and what I was trying to do and say. The problem was that, like most mortals, she was only aware of her physical body, captive to it, so to speak, and not in tune with her spirit at that time in her life, which actually goes against a lot of what we believe anyway. That spirits and bodies they're joined together. You are that is your soul is the combination of the two, but whatever. But also, it feels like he's dissing his wife a lot. She just wasn't spiritual enough to know that I was inhabiting her body. Okay. Oh, dude. And then women, you're gonna get pissed off at this one. He says, as I passed through her, I learned many things about what her experience in mortality had been like, what it felt like to be a woman, to be loved, to be protected, and now to be fearful for her protector because he was dying. Gross! Like, that's what it's like to be a woman, right? That to be loved and protected. I can't even. Like, was that his own mother's experience? Does he not grasp that every person has a different life experience and his own mother did not ever feel loved or protected? Give me a break. Oh, and then he says, I understood her completely, including what it was like to have our sons and daughters. So now he's saying he knows what pregnancy and childbirth are like? And probably motherhood in general. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. Don't you dare, dude. Don't you dare. No. Okay, skipping a couple pages because I could keep ranting all day, but we don't want to be here all day. So, he's talking about the weird things that he supposedly learns about like levels and like degrees of angels, and the greater angels, those with more glory and greater power, can withhold their identity. To me, that's a red flag because you would think that a great righteous angel would never withhold their identity. They would be fully honest. Like, but just so you know, I am a righteous messenger from God. I'm not from the other side. It would be the devil's side that would like try to withhold their identity and trick you. Assuming you believe in angels at all, but in my mind, he's got it backwards there. And then this is a Chad and Lori thing again, going into so I realized that a spirit who has never been mortal has no definite spiritual shape. I saw some of these evil spirits appear as a child, others as a man in a business suit or a beautiful young woman. That's starting to explain to me how Chad and Lori could look at their own children and see evil, because somehow they're possessed by spirits that just mimic children, I guess. That's terrifying. And yet in the same paragraph, there's a line that I was like, if Chad would have considered this little part and applied it to his life, but again, they can't apply things because they're stupid. The spirits could appear in the image of a grandfather or a dead prophet or someone's wife if it helped in their deception. We know that Chad often said, well, your grandmother came and visited me and said X, Y, and Z, or I saw a vision. So if you're seeing an ancestor and you believe this book, then it could be a deception, right? How do you know it's not? Especially if the good angels can withhold their identity. There's like no way to know in this planet universe that is their scary brains. And then there's like a part of this line that I'm like, I can see what you're saying, but no, we are sent here to accomplish our own work, to heal the wounds of past generations. I can get on board with that. And to bless those who follow us. And then I thought, I think he meant those who come after us, like our descendants. How much you want to bet Chad read that and thought, those who follow me, like a cult, like a leader, like a cult leader. Those who follow me, yeah, that's how it works. Yike. Okay. Let's see. And and then he says he was not allowed to remember the identity of these various angels or like that were like ancestors that he saw. Although while he was dead, I guess he knew who they were, but then when he came back to his body, he wasn't allowed to remember. And then he violates the fact that he was not given permission to remember by trying to seek out and figure out who they were. So he goes to family documents and pictures and goes, "Oh, I think it was, this dude from, The angel on my left was James Henry, my great great grandfather, and da, 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 da. So I'm sitting there going, so why do you think you're so righteous? If prevented you from remembering who this person was, isn't there a reason for that? Why are you violating that? Like that does not seem like in line with being obedient. Okay. Um, let's see here. And then so for those who don't know, Latter-day Saints, we believe that in the next life there is like missionary work going on. And so those who did not hear of the gospel or whatever, they could hear it in the next life. And so it's the you don't just die and go to hell if you don't, come to Christ or whatever. But in the world of departed spirits, Tom says, or this is John reporting what supposedly Spencer, but we know it's Tom in real life, says the teaching of the gospel to past generations must come from righteous souls who acquired it during their lives. In other words, you must acquire the gospel here on earth before you can be a missionary and minister of hope who departed before you. That, no? Like, so that sounds like anyone who receives the gospel and on the other side cannot then become a missionary and continue to do good things like that. There's a lot in here that makes it sound like that your birth in this life shows how your valiance in the pre-mortal life, which is an absolute load of crap. And that concept is one that pisses me off on many levels. A lot of people use that idea, which has never been doctrine, but it was spouted by random people and spread like wildfire, that that's why Black people weren't allowed to have the priesthood earlier in the church. Oh, because they weren't as valiant in their former life. And if you were truly valiant, then you'd be born into the church. And that bothers me also. Not only I'm not a Black person, but my mother is a convert and an immigrant, and so she, coming to Utah, she had people that would be like, "Oh, you're a convert. You must not have been righteous in the last life." And she was like, "Excuse me, what now?" So that mentality pisses me off. And I've always thought that, maybe some of the weaker ones were born into families that were not abusive and that were loving and kind and had scriptures and love and Christ and all these things because God knew that you needed the extra help. Whereas the really hard, life might have been given to the more valiant ones because they could handle it. Just a thought. Okay. And then talks about how that people from beyond, like our ancestors, can come and minister to us. And I will believe that can happen. I think some of our guardian angels could be deceased relatives. But he makes it sound like those are the ones who come to you, period. And if you don't have righteous ancestors, sucks to be you, because then you have to wait till the ones who did have righteous ancestors, like those ancestors, have time to come in and take care of you. Because it says that like those workers are in short supply. So their priority is to their righteous descendants. And then when they have time, they'll go help other people who didn't have righteous ancestors. I don't think that's how God works. Not remotely. Like, I do think that, family, and although I think the whole concept of sealing is far more complex than people in the church like to think, that we're sealed as a human family. And that, the ancestors, I think that it's hard to say it without a script in front of me or something, but no, I think that there is a pull to family. I mean, people who've been adopted and didn't know who their families were can attest to that as well. But it's not this, whatever this mess is. So this, again, judging people based on how they were born. Deceased family are watching and waiting and guiding us into fulfilling our righteous mortal duties so that we can return and teach and bless them. So our deceased family, I can believe half of that. Our deceased family, they're watching and guiding us and all this, but they're doing it for a selfish reason so that we can come back and bless them. I would hope that our righteous ancestors would do things because they love us. It's the right thing to do. Crazy idea, I know. Whatever. I also learned that it is a great blessing to have been born into a family where those who have died before we were righteous, before were righteous, powerful men and women, sealed in the covenant relationships, generation after generation. They have a greater power to bless and guide mortals. Okay, so there's so many levels of ick there. That you have more power if your family has been sealed in covenant relationships for generation after generation. How he's defining covenant relationship, I'm not sure, because if it's within the context of a Latter-day Saint, how many generations back is that? 1830s, not that long ago. Um, but again, those who are blessed to be born into these families are better, whatever. And then several times he's told to go back to his body and then, ow, it hurts. No. And I'm like, okay, you wimp. Okay. I don't, he thinks he's so awesome and just pisses me off. Okay. And then, oh gosh, he's learning about the fall and all of these things that we need to do in this life. Like how much time that we need to our bodies need to grow and be exposed to truth to be finished. And I think this is where Chad and Lori start getting the process of being translated across months and years, which is not a thing in our belief system at all. Um, Again, there's just these little kernels where I'm like, okay, I see where that's on the edge of something, and then they just ran with it, and like, ugh. um, let's see. Um, I learned that I, and that's in quotation marks, am in fact my spirit self, who already has a godly nature, and rather than overcoming my body as in beating it into submission, my struggles were engineered to elevate my body to the stature of my spirit. Which I'm like, I can see what you're saying, maybe, but again, that goes against the idea that our bodies are important and are part of us. And okay, then he goes on to victim blame some more. The desk. Oh yeah, this is where he's in the hospital. He's exploring the hospital, and he goes into the doctor's office, and he sees all the different things in the office, and how everything has like personality and intelligence. Like the wood, it was content to be wood, and was pleased that someone had chosen for it to be shaped into this desk. Okay. And then the desk also felt pure and worthy because it had never been used in anything that offended God. Again, that's victim blaming all over the place. If someone uses even a piece of wood in an unrighteous way, then that piece of wood is now unworthy and impure. That's victim blaming all over the place, guys. This is not how any of this works. Oh my gosh. Ooh. Oh gosh. Then he talks about how it was intriguing to me to see that our spirits came to this earth in an almost godlike state. I expect that there are some spirits that came here with impure motives and desires, but I found that my spirit only desired good, only desired to be in harmony with God. Arrogant much? Oh my heavens. I found that my spirit was just perfect and godlike. Oh, okay. Yeah, and then this is where he's like steps over into full-on blasphemy as if he hasn't already, but just wait. He talks about how we are also learning to perfect it, meaning our body, to teach it perfect obedience to the will of Christ, and in so doing, overcome the world and the fall. That's literally what the atonement is for. That's literally Christ's job. He's kind of saying that we could do things without Christ, like, which is, dude, no, that's danger, Will Rogers, red flags everywhere. And then he talks about other types of materials. We talked about the wood, remember? And then he says, man-made things like steel and plastic were harder to walk through and had no voice. I couldn't discern their story or their history. They were dead to me at the time. Okay. And then he got the chance to talk with the earth. And yes, like the orb, the earth. He even clarifies talking with the earth is like having a planet on your body. Okay, so like Atlas? Is that what we're talking about here? It's a really bad metaphor. Okay, the bearing the weight of a great intelligence, of a perfect knowledge and flawless memory of all the good and evil that has existed on her face. Oh boy. Okay. He says it is to stand face to face with a living, referring to the earth again, living, brilliantly intelligent being the size of a planet that is a planet. If you believe it, it's apparently alive and female, which, there's threads like a lot of indigenous faiths believe that the earth is alive too. So I'm not dissing that concept, but I'm just mocking his idea of it. It just doesn't work to me. So this being, intelligent being, the size of a planet who is both loving and angry, anxious and patient, having been true and faithful in all things. It is not something one can prepare for without great spiritual experience and divine preparation. So he has had great spiritual experience and divine preparation because he was able to have this experience of speaking to the earth and bearing the weight. And he was 33 at this point, remember. I swear, this dude just. Okay, we're not too far from the end of chapter 1. So he's looking at some rocks. Yes, rocks. Apparently their intelligence and agency is very limited unless divine. Okay. And how much more profound and glorious are human beings who are so much more than rocks, yet we don't value them except for what they might do for us. Like, speak for yourself, dude. You were just saying that even our deceased ancestors are only helping us because they hope we can help them. Like, And then a little bit later on the same page, he talks about having this perspective and all of these revelatory experiences has thinned the veil in many ways. And now I'm like, Chad and Lori, no, stop. Because the more spiritual you have, the thinner the veil becomes. And then you can justify killing people. And yeah. And he's starting to see, again, and more people that he gets to see their lives and all of their inner thoughts and all that. And it just makes me, ugh. Because I felt deep sadness for most of them and could hardly stand to meet another person after a while. I'm like, oh, it's so Christ-like of you. Goodness. And then he's still walking through the hospital and he's saddened by, apparently there's various items in the hospital that are sad by how their owners used them. And their voices are they're crying out for redemption and justice for the crimes that this object was used for immoral or violent purposes. It was not a shrill or piercing or unpleasant sound, but it was unending and carried the vivid details of the injustice. I knew that the object itself was not diminished or condemned, but it waited with patient expectation for the day of redemption. Okay, so it's, again, we're going back to like the desk, who was so pure and worthy because nothing bad had happened on the desk or with the desk. And now I'm sitting there like, so assuming he's describing an object, like say a knife that was used in a crime, what does redemption look like for a knife or any object? Please enlighten us, Tom. Oh boy. And then he talks about how moving through and finally getting back into his body again was so the most painful time of all. I'm like, then why did you go through with it? Because you just told us you wouldn't before because it hurt too much. And as he's trying to wake up, he contradicts himself again and again. He had no strength to even blink his eyes or vomit. And I'm like, okay, before you had a procedure at the hospital, you probably had to show up fasting so you couldn't, there's nothing to vomit. Just a thought. But also, I couldn't even blink my eyes. And then he talks about opening his eyes. And I'm like, so are you literally saying you have power to like do this with your eyes multiple times? Because you did open them. Okay. And then weirdly, after he's like recovered, they give him some orange juice and he's feeling better now. The doctor says, come to my office in the hospital to make sure you're going to be okay. I've never ever seen that or heard of that happening, that like a doctor will say, yes, come into my office, my fancy office in this hospital and rest up. That sounds like absolute fiction to me. And then he talks about his wife is next to him, and so she's there, and they will wheel him into the office. She did not realize what had just happened to me, and the way he talks to her, it almost feels like he expects her to have realized, like, oh, she just was dumb or something like that. Maybe that's not how he means it, but that's how it comes across to me. But again, why did they go to the office to talk about what? Just for him to recover? There's recovery rooms for that. That's weird. And then he talks about how important agency is, the ability to choose. And then almost in the same breath, he talks about how I didn't have a choice as I was just called back to earth. So which is it, dude? Like what? Okay. This is just, yeah. Um, then later on, once he's been released, he's home. Then his wife apparently asks for an appointment to go see the doctor because she wants to know what actually happened to him that day. Like, did he actually die? And all of this stuff. And the doctor would only say that, well, there were scary moments. His heart stopped. He stopped breathing, but we were able to resuscitate him. But he wouldn't say, I actually died. Like, he has to speak clinically. Your heart stopped. You stopped breathing. We resuscitated you. Clinically speaking, that's what happened. What else can this doctor do? But I'm wondering, is this the moment when he actually saw the doctor's office? That would make a whole lot more sense to me. If it was an actual appointment and maybe not even within the hospital, but like a regular office space of some kind. I don't know. The whole thing is just bizarre. But he thinks that the doctor wouldn't admit he died because he just didn't want them to sue him. Okay. And then part of me also wonders, though, if it wasn't even a doctor, because a lot of CT type procedures, there are other specialists in the room, not the doctors, the MDs. So this, oh gosh, this dude, there's so many levels of ick, you guys. Like, just the whole victim blaming thing, and like, I was born so righteous with wanting to do only good things. I was almost godlike as a baby. And then like, oh yeah, I saw my own conception. What? Gross, just gross. So yeah, that's chapter 1. So we've got a lot of fun comments here. We'll go through here. All right. So Robin, when I was active in the LDS, I read this book. I found the author's near-death experience account fascinating, but I didn't take it as gospel truth. This reminds me of the Catcher in the Rye phenomenon. Yeah, I actually I mentioned it to my mom actually the other day that I was reading it, and she's like, "Oh, I think I read that back in the day. Didn't think much of it." And so for rational people, or even people who, whether or not you believe any faith at all, but even those who have a responsible faith, they'll see it as, oh, that's just his opinion, that's just that's his thing, and not, I don't know, built a cult out of it. But I'm not sure what the Catcher in the Rye phenomenon is. I've read the Catcher in the Rye. I'm not sure what the phenomenon is. So I'd love if you have any comments on that, let me know. Let's see. Yeah, Kitty Girl. Oh, I caught it live. Yay. And then Trisha is here. Thank you guys. Oh, your audio's good. Thank you. Good. It popped up finally. He's Spencer, not the author, right? Yeah. Well, it's written in first person as if it's Spencer speaking, but John is the one writing it. So yeah, it's as told to John Pontius. The Spencer is the fake name, but we all know it's actually Tom Harrison. And then Ola from Ecuador. Cool. Hey, and Tam, Trishi, hello, my friend. Yay. Whoops. No sound. Yeah, stupid. I seriously, I've tried multiple issues with the same cord, and I don't know, or the same mic, but different cords. And for some reason, it just doesn't want to. I think it's the attachment somehow. All right. This book is a scary book to have in your home. I read it, but it left me feeling creepy. Yeah. I've had it for about a year now, and I haven't finished it. And that's part of it because it makes me mad, and knowing what it led to. But I think it's also important to talk about it on some level. And when I'm done talking about it, I will probably destroy it. Yeah. But yeah, that's agreed. I punch him in the face, but I'm totally a peacemaker. Right? Exactly. Robin, it's been years since I read this book, but I don't remember all these things. Was the book edited after release? I didn't take it seriously enough. That's the thing, is if you're just reading along and you don't know what came after the book, what people did with it, then you probably wouldn't notice these things. Let's see, this is unfortunately is still for sale. This was published. This one came out in 2012. So yeah, that was the first edition, unfortunately, and it's still out there. But again, as I've mentioned in other lives and whatnot, it never has, it is not and never has been a bestseller in Utah, period. And I've started publishing in the LDS market with the second largest publisher, which is not them, by the way. That's Cedar Fort, with Covenant Communications in 2002. I was heavily involved in the market. I knew the bestsellers. I knew the stores. I knew the managers. I was publishing regularly, and I had never heard of this book until Chad and Lori were arrested. So So it's not, it's a dangerous book, but it's not this bestseller that everyone thinks that, oh, we're all going to turn into cultists. Trishy says, I never read this piece of fiction. Yeah. But it's obviously by the behaviors of those who took it as some sort of doctrine that it is a work of deception. In my opinion, scary indeed. Amen to that. Yep. Trish again says icky and no, yeah. Just stop, dude. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. Yeah, exactly. This is seriously. In my opinion, the way he's able to get this piece of garbage book to go have gone anywhere is he threw out the name Elder Boyd K. Packer. Ooh, maybe I have the general names wrong. I think it was Elder Maxwell, which in my mind makes it almost worse because Packer was kind of polarizing, to put it nicely. He had a lot of strong opinions on things that that he actually had to be corrected by the first presidency near his death, actually on one of his conference talks. But Elder Maxwell was as sweet and kind and everything, and so the fact that he's invoking Maxwell's name really, really bothers me. Oh, and Tam says, my son is on the other side of the veil, bringing Israel together there. I have such a strong feeling of this. Oh, Tam, I love that. I just so sorry for your loss, but I believe that too. And that, but he's doing good stuff. Yeah. And then Kitty says, yeah, also Elder Maxwell. That's correct. Kitty Girl again. Funny story though. My cousins moved into Boyd K. Packer's daughter's ward when they first moved to Mississippi, and he came to their ward Christmas party once. But that was an event. Like everyone's like, what? Because yeah, he's an intense dude. Yeah, another interesting thing with Packer, I actually know someone who married one of the grandkids. And yeah, because he could be polarizing, and he actually excommunicated a bunch of polygamists who were trying to do sealings of the Manti Temple, obviously without any authorization. So there was a bounty on family members' heads, and so they had to be very careful. They'd get calls from Salt Lake of like, okay, don't accept suspicious packages, just so you know. There's scary stuff. Ugh. But yeah, it's disgusting. Yeah, watching on conception is sickening. Seriously, it is so disgusting. And then, yeah, the righteous generations. If you do your family's work, there are generations and generations of righteous members too. No, yes, except that he goes, yeah, if you accept it in the next life, then you're still not righteous enough to be a missionary or whatever. Yeah, he is just so messed up. Linda, thank you. She was, Annette, I love you. Thanks for your perspective. Thank you. I'm doing this hopefully to share what the reality is. Oh, and Anne, when my stillborn baby was born, they wrapped him in a small blanket towel. Why would there even be newspapers in the delivery room? Exactly. I even thought, is he mistaking like some sort of like a tissue or a butcher paper type thing that might be in a hospital? But they would treat babies with comfort and dignity. It would be like a little blanket or a little towel, cloth of some kind. So weird. Yeah. And then, yeah, Tricia, good point. Doesn't it contradict the second article of faith about being only accountable for our own sins? Yes. Thank you. Yes. Like he's completely contradicting scripture. It's like, but if you read it fast, and that's why I maybe it's good that I can only read a few pages at a time by myself. If you're reading it slowly, then you can go, wait a minute, didn't you just say, hold up, that is contradicted by what Christ actually said or whatever. Oh goodness. Oh, let me work. Tam. Oh, so I went for same-day surgery. He passed that night. Oh gosh, found that he had passed, and I've struggled every day since. That is so. I thank you so much for your kind words. That would be. I mean, it's hard enough, I think, to lose. But to have it be something so sudden like that, that would be when there's no chance to even prepare for the grief. I can't even comprehend. Oh goodness. And Trish, you've also lost a child. Goodness. Yeah. Yeah. And Trish, yeah. Inanimate objects have souls. Yeah. I can't, it doesn't make sense to me. It's almost like he's taking the idea, because we do believe that like intelligences existed and whatnot before our spirits. So I felt like he's maybe using that to say that things, that everything was made in spirit form before it was made in physical form, but that doesn't mean that they have consciousness. Like that's so bizarre. Oh, you guys are so kind to each other. I love this. Wow. Melissa Brown is the author, a member of the church in good standing. He has passed away. So I believe he was up to the point of the book's publication, and I did hear that he regretted publishing it. But yeah, I believe I think both John Pontius, the actual author, and Tom Harrison / Spencer, they've both passed away, is my understanding. Let's see. There were 2 or 3 unalivings committed. John Lennon was one where the unaliver was obsessed with that book. John Lennon? Oh, John Dehlin. John Dehlin, yeah. Maybe. Anyway, but yeah, there's been a lot of death surrounding this book, and a lot of near deaths and other creepy things like that. Let's see. I'll catch on the right book I meant. Yeah. Okay. And Chad Daybell was excommunicated. Yes. And I think it's hilarious that Lori claims that she hasn't been, but Nate Eaton was like, he had some source that kind of contradicted that, which goes along with what I think too, because there's no way she hasn't been. There's no way. If Chad's been at X, she 100% has been too. There's just no way. And yes, and Trish, yes, don't get me started on Dehlin. Amen. Oh, I know so many people, like even outside the church, who love him because he likes to expose stuff. But guys, he's evil. Period. I don't care if he's attacking a church you don't like. He's an evil human. In my opinion. I heard an interview that he did way before he was excommunicated. This is like he was in good standing, and just the interview itself was like, I felt like I had to take a shower afterwards. I'm like, this guy is creepy. He is a misogynist. I don't like him. His attitude is gross. So it was not remotely a surprise to me when he started doing grosser and sicker things. And for some people have wondered, okay, what does he do? Because he has exposed some pretty gross stuff as well, like culty things. But for one thing he did relatively recently in Utah. So there's a relatively famous gay couple in Utah. One of them he used to be the mascot for BYU, Cosmo, the cougar. And he wrote books for Deseret Book about being gay in the church, and he's still practicing. He married a man, and he's one of those people who's like, I this is my faith. I love my faith. I will continue to attend, even if I'm not fully in good standing, because I'm no longer gonna have a temple recommend because I'm married to a man. But like if you ever watch some of his videos on Instagram or whatever, he has such a good heart. And John Dehlin doxed him. He sent some spies out to figure out where he attended church, and then had people attacking his bishop and stake president, his other leaders, to try to get him excommunicated if he wasn't already, and to get those leaders attacked and kicked out of their positions. And he only backtracked when that blew up in his face. People were like, that's not cool, dude. Why'd you do that? And he's like, it was some of my employees. Like, okay, sure, dude. Yeah. So Tim Ballard, yes, yeah. For a second, I thought Russell for a second, because we're thinking all the leaders. So yeah, Tim Ballard, yes. Tim Ballard is also part of this little culty crew. So anyone who likes to support Tim Ballard and refuses to see some of the realities of what he actually did, I'm not a fan of Tim Ballard's either. I have a playlist on him as well. And every time I talk about Tim Ballard or do a video on Tim Ballard, people are like, he is saving children. He is such a righteous man. You're a horrible. I'm like, no, actually, he's not. Anyway, so you guys are awesome. Thank you so much. So I'm going to call it here. I've got an appointment I have to get to. But yeah, I'll do some more of this as we move forward. And I'll have to read some more of the book. Let's see, I'm not even sure what chapter I'm on. Farther ahead than I read today, but maybe I'm halfway through-ish, almost. It's hard. It's hard to go there, but I think it's important to shed some light on what the piece of crap stuff's going on. So anyway, that's where we are right now. If you haven't yet, to subscribe, makes a big difference, and like and all that good stuff. I will have another video up soon that's a regular video rather than a live about I've got a couple that are bouncing around in my head. I also, this book right here, Stolen Innocence, is the Jan Broberg story. It was loaned to me a little over a year ago. I need to get it back to the owners. Let me know if you're interested in that story. She's been on Dr. Phil's. There's a Netflix documentary about her. It is a wild story. She was abducted twice from Idaho. And the guy just there's a family friend, and if there's LDS connection there too, of course, which is just upsetting and horrifying. But there's that. Shanna Gardner, Corey Richens. Anyway, lots of updates to do. So that's what we're going to be doing. Anyway, thanks for hanging out with me. I really appreciate it. Let's see. Please don't go. Oh, thanks, Dionne. So good to see you guys. I really appreciate it. Yeah, I'm not going anywhere. Anyway, have a good one, guys. Go get some chocolate.